Hi, everybody. It's a CC&JT Amateur Hour with Productions Value Go to Die. That obviously is CC over there.
JT.
And we featuring our author of the week. We do this every once in a while on the podcast so people can learn not just from us, but from people around the world about developing, creating a writing product. And we have something very special for you today. I've been looking forward to this. James has been an inspiration to us on a different level, and I'm going to get to that in a second. James Raquepau, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
The reason that I really admire James, just from the get-go, before I throw it over to you, is for writers who are seeking a web presence or want to develop a media package or media kit. James's website is the place to go. I have to tell you, sir, I was so impressed with what you and your team put together. It's a blessing, first of all, to us podcasters because we beg for information, and you just pretty much dropped it in our laps. So thank you for that.
Sure. I get that from book club operators as well. They're trying to figure out, how am I going to present your series to the book club? And it's like, you got to have, content, and you've got to be creative. Hopefully being in IT has helped that.
Oh yeah, it's just fantastic. So enough about those little details, although I think they're very important details. Let's throw it over to you. Tell us about yourself and tell us about your works.
Thanks so much. I'm James Raquepau. I'm the author of Destiny Cycle, which is a semi-historical epic fantasy adventure set in Celtic Ireland. Now, the reason I chose Celtic Ireland is because of the rich lore and history and legends that come out of the Tuatha De Danann and the Gaels themselves, and where the Gaels came from, where they ended up, coming all the way from northern Spain to Ireland to Scotland. It's just such a rich, fertile field to till. And so while I'm a quarter Scot, Ireland's where I've been the most times. In terms of, I did some research back in the 90s. This whole story actually started in the mid-90s as a dream, or a portion of a dream, and it just grew from there. Then I got married and went into IT and had kids, and I put the first novel down, which was called Stone of Destiny at the time. And then when I retired, I picked it all back up, and Stone of Destiny became Blades of Destiny and Stone of Destiny. So I cut that in two and expanded it and made it much better, got professional editor. I got two professional editors. The first one was not so professional. The second one turned out to be great, and she has a little cadre of supporter editors that help out. So, the Stone of Destiny became Blades of Destiny, and then Stone of Destiny. Now, you notice my covers are pretty, what shall I say, dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
I fortunately, when you're in trying to figure out what do you make yourself, what do you outsource as an author, what are you going to use from creatives? I stumbled upon an artist, illustrator, for all things. She also does book layouts for paperback, hardback, ebooks, audiobooks, etc. And I have all of those. So my covers have to be able to be adapted to those different formats. So Nadia is based in Ukraine, of all places. We've been together since before the war started there. And we're still together on working on different aspects of the titles for the books and the layouts for the books and that sort of thing. So, the creativity of what you do yourself and then what you outsource. So, for example, each of the books has a song. Not to mention that we've decided with my composer to create soundtracks. That's another story. But each of the books has a song, and I usually find, in this case, the first three books were a pair of ladies, one from Ireland, one from Argentina, of all places. My composer is now from Argentina, originally not. And so, what can you do with music tied into the books? And, the songs are just, in the books, are just text, but they come to life, and they're all now on Spotify and Google, Spotify, YouTube Music, and Apple, and others. Use a distributor called DistroKid that my composer turned me on to. And it puts it out on all the streaming services, and it's pretty cool. So now we have 2 3/4 of the soundtracks done. So the first book, and we're wrapping up the second book in probably February. We have 3 songs to go, or 3 tracks to go. And then I just came up with the lyrics for Warriors of Destiny, which is the one that's underway right now. There's 5 books in the series: Blades of Destiny, Stone of Destiny, Heart of Destiny, Warriors of Destiny, and Immortals of Destiny. Immortals won't be out until mid 27, but Warriors should be out in mid 26. So there we go. That's a little bit about me and what I'm working on, and I'll let you ask questions.
Well, one thing that I found fascinating, JT mentioned that you did have a lot of information available, was the fact that you had released your first book. Basically, I guess it was the entire, what is now a series in one book, felt that it wasn't maybe broad enough in scope and that it needed some smoothing. How hard was that decision? As a writer, we release these books and we feel pretty attached to them. But how did you make the decision to actually go back, expand, and re-release these books?
So when I retired and I looked at the first book, I went, wow, I really rushed through that, right? In your head, you're going, there's just so much more here. But what was I thinking? But what I was thinking was when I was, in my around 30, I'm going, I just want to get it done, which is not like the right way to approach it. And then, and I try to use as many relics and legends and myths from Tuatha De Danann and Ireland as real as they are, as real as they can be. And then, but I had to create some others to like round out the story. And so it was actually pretty easy when I went back and reread it, and I said, you know what? This is 30 years later. This was really bad. So when you think of it that way, you go, it's a pretty easy decision. I'm going to fix this. And then when I started fixing it, it was just all these ideas came to me that I had to pursue.
So then that's perfectly awesome. That is, especially since probably those 30 years gave you a little bit more introspection, not only on yourself, but in probably your writing skills and the way that you can elaborate on paper. But my question is not so much as the fantasy series world is, which I believe, I guess fantasy series is what you dabble in. I don't want to say there's a flood of talent in there, but there's quite a bit representation in that particular genre. If someone were to come up to you like in a podcast at random and say something like, James, what makes yours so special that people should give it a hit? What would you say is special about your series as compared to, I don't know, Tolkien maybe, or something like that?
I'd say that I have not read many truly semi-historical fantasies that are sort of, that exploit the real world and build, like a magic system around druids and Tuatha gods and legends. They're usually creating their own world. And I'm growing this out of, is known of from, I don't know, the BC time frame, a couple hundred years BC all the way to 5th and 6th century. And so we don't have a lot there. We have enough, but I guess to me that's what makes the Destiny cycle just that much different. And then there's lots of opportunity on the history of the Celts and the Gaels. It's just so lush that I think it gives you a different landscape than the typical fantasy adventure series that has like a whole new world from somewhere else.
Well, that's a very good point, because a lot of the fantasies that people create, and science fiction, which JT has done as well, creating those worlds can be a challenge, but it's also very challenging to kind of interpret history with the maybe sparse details that we have available and make it believable. So that's something that I really admire, because I love history myself. But since you are so deeply immersed in this world that you've created, developed, and now you're even expanding it with music, do you foresee yourself doing anything else? Or do you think that everything that you're working on in the future, you did mention, I think, that you were coming up with a book 4. Do you foresee doing anything different? Or do you think this is going to be kind of your place in the world of writing?
Well, given my age and where I'm at, I can see doing, after the 5th book, which is going to be Immortals of Destiny, 4th book, Warriors of Destiny. And you can see the cover of Warriors of Destiny on my website. I've already envisioned that scene, so Nadia and I worked on it, and it turned out really good. If you'll notice, I'm not going to digress too much, but the fun thing about like this cover, this little gal over here happens to be my second oldest granddaughter. If you look at the Warriors of Destiny title cover thingy, it's just 2 of those characters are my eldest granddaughter and my 3rd granddaughter. And so I've created them as characters in the book. That's been a lot of fun. And they get to, like, you do a book signing, and they come to it and they go, "That's me, that's me." That's a lot of fun. But yeah, to answer the question, it will likely be probably the primary focus. There's so much fodder here to work with. I don't know. I think I could go develop something as rich and deep, and in the succeeding 10 years that I think I'll be writing. Hopefully that
That's
answers
also
it.
good. And it's funny that you mentioned, putting your family into your art, your literary art, because that's what it is. It's because my initials
Right.
JT are my grandsons, are our grandsons. So it's JT. So that's where it comes from. Let's talk about the Nitnoy details that I just absolutely love. Every tartan and every badge tells a story. Tell us about the tartan that you're wearing and the badges.
Okay, so this is the Clan Ferguson Titan colors. The Fergusons came from Scotland directly to New York in the mid 1600s. About 100 years or 100 plus years later, one of the great whatever grandsons went and fought in the Civil War. Came back, had a homestead, got a homestead, free homestead in Michigan between Flint and Saginaw, and that happened to be 2 doors down from a French Canadian guy who did the same thing, and their kids, Clara and Edward, met and married and had children, and it turns out that that Clan Ferguson is now a quarter me. So this is the crest of the clan, and this little thing here is actually that thing there, which is the shield crest from the Destiny Cycle. And this is I don't know if you can see it, but there's the Blades of Destiny, Stone of Destiny, Heart of Destiny, and the one actual semi-historical relic of the Tuatha, the Sword of Light. So there you go.
What
That's
a
how it
wonderful! You have just a wonderful imagination and a wonderful design team which works off that
Well,
imagination.
it's
So
just me and
really,
Nadia.
that's quite impressive.
It's just me and Nadia. There is no team. Well, I guess that is a team, but anyways.
Or what we say is it's our multiple personalities. That's what we call our team.
So you've mentioned your artist Nadia a few times. How did you go about finding the cover artist? Did you find her on a particular site, or how did that work?
I found her on Upwork. I had looked at Fiverr and didn't find too many artists that I liked, and she showed me some of her samples, and I explained what I wanted, and okay, so we agreed to give it a try, and it's really funny working with her because she's not a native English speaker. So I first said here, and I gave her like a chapter, and she goes, "I'm not English. I can read a few pages, right?" So I go, all right, here, I'll nail it down. I gave her 2 scenes. And so the first time she thought this scene, which is when Brianna battles Fomorian demons with the sun god. That one came out pretty good, and we were pretty happy with it. I have done some interesting things with AI animation where I've taken the cover and I've uploaded it. And the blades that she carries are imaginary. I made them up. I actually had someone ask this in a podcast, what are those? And I call them long blades, but they really never existed. So anyways, her fighting style is all around. And they shoot balefire when there's magic around, other magical beings like the Fomorians. So I animated that. That was fun. Anyway, so the second cover was really fun because I gave her 2 more scenes, and she said, well, the first scene you gave me is a lot like book 1, and we should probably not do that. But I like that second scene, and that's towards the end of Stone of Destiny, where Brianna ends up, she's got this little ghosty thing going on, which you can see, right? That was all Nadia, not me at all. I had no idea what she was going to come up with, and she's just brilliant. I don't know. I just love working with her.
So what I've found fascinating is, as I mentioned before, that you've re-released your books, but also you seem to be smoothing out your process as you go. You are releasing new books, obviously, but you're also updating things like your media kit. And how has that process been working for you?
Well, so it's interesting to go back and, I finished Heart of Destiny, and when I did that and I had reworked it, then my editor, who's just absolutely fantastic. Holly is from Evil Eye Editing. If anybody wants to find a good editor, she's just great. And when we were working on Heart of Destiny, it was interesting. She has a line editor. And I won't say her name because we had to boot her off the project because she's big on fantasy adventure and all that other stuff, but she just got too negative on the storyline. And I said, I can't deal with this. So she said, I have someone else I'll bring in as a line editor. And that was Sigrid, and she was fantastic. And so we reworked everything and fine-tuned it, and then it was like, okay, before I put Heart out, let's rework Blades in Stone. And I went back and I changed the way that you see the characters as they take over a scene. And I named them. It was much easier to follow. And so, that process is just, getting feedback from reviews and readers. Some that said it's kind of hard to follow the transitions from scene to scene. So I knew I had to work on it. And if I was going to do it on one book, I might as well do it on the other two. It didn't cost me. Well, yeah, it cost me that. This is not a inexpensive venture. Let's put it that way. But so the whole process is like getting feedback from people about what they like, what they didn't like. I did have one person say, "You spelled fairy wrong. It should be F-A-E-R. Fairy. No, fairies. Those fairies, the Fae, were born in the 1500s. I'm in the 5th century." Well, I do go back. We'll talk about time in a bit anyways. So that's how it came about. And the same thing ends up happening with the audiobooks, right? You got to listen to them and see how they turned out and how they read and have some feedback from the readers about, well, what did you like? And so, well, she didn't do such a good job with the Gaelic. And so I did a better job giving her a pronunciation guide, my narrator, Erica. Mm-hmm. And when she did Heart of Destiny, I knew we had to redo the first two. So hope that helps. Finding platforms that will help you get stuff out, like Authors Republic. The UI is pretty bad, but it makes it really easy to work with a narrator. And you can find narrators in all kinds of price ranges from, $50 an hour up to $2,500 an hour. No way I could afford that.
Right.
But Erica did a great job and didn't break the bank. And it's just like Nadia did a great job and didn't break the bank. I mean, those covers aren't inexpensive, but it's not so painful. Like I can't afford it. So so I hope that answers the question. But and then on music, using DistroKids and finding, like the first time I tried a site called Air Gigs. Where I found the two gals who did the singing the first 3 songs. And then one of those gals knew a composer who was my current composer, Toledo. And so the music just sort of happened. I go through and I summarize the chapter, and he does a song per chapter. So it's like, I think there's 6 songs or 6 tracks per, and the latest one was about the Dark Goddess, and it was really well done. We just released it, and he has one of his colleagues, a gal, who added some tonal chanting voice in the background. It turned out really good. So anyways, it's just you got to be creative and try and figure out, what's going to grab the interest of the readers.
No, we totally understand.
Oh, yeah.
And since we're both from an IT background, what you were describing, I think you can relate to this next sentence, is I'm really, really fascinated by process. I'm fascinated by the process of everything. And what you described, really was very interesting to me. Let's take a quick turn into Act 2. And we send these questions to everybody that we're going to interview on our show. And we used James Lipton's questions from inside the Actors Studio, except we adapted them for writers. And we hope that we're going to have some fun with these. And so I'll go ahead and get started. And so, James, tell us, what was your first honest to goodness, I am a writer moment?
Well, I'll give you the first one where I knew I wasn't a writer. Excuse me, I wasn't an author. I have a degree in creative writing from Eastern Michigan University, and I had a British professor who was writing romance with his wife back in the East, of all things. I don't know how he got on that. He was into, I don't know how they did it. But anyways, he said, if you're writing for yourself, you're a writer. And if you're writing for your readers, you're an author. So stop writing for yourself and start writing for your readers. And that gave me, that was kind of like, okay, I am not writing for myself. I want to get this story out. So I guess I'm going to be an author. And so it's kind of like one of those mindset things of, if you write something and you go back and read it and you don't like it, or one of your readers doesn't like it and has a legit you don't take offense. You go, I'm going to fix it. So it's a different mindset. Well, I think when you're an author, you've got to go, if that didn't work, I got to fix it. So that's how I approach, like reworking things, the sort of the process I go through in my head about, okay, so I've gotten this feedback and how do I incorporate it? And yeah, that's how I work.
That's awesome because I never really heard it put that way before. That, people have always been a little bit like writer and author are interchangeable. You can call yourself either or, but that makes a good point that
Right.
some of us do tend to write for ourselves. I think maybe JT and I are on that side of things. But the idea of being an author and writing for other people is fascinating. So, based on talking about this professor, who is your writing role model and why?
I like semi-historical authors, fantasy authors. I mean, even if they've created a whole new world, like Anne McCaffrey and Pern. Very good world building. Yep, it's a different world, a whole different evolution and all the other stuff. But it was really detailed and well enough that you just believed the dragons were real. It was like everything was super. There's another author, Catherine Kurtz, who did the Durini series in the 90s. And she built this world around a pseudo-British kingdom with magic that was really detailed. And so I tend to be drawn to authors who can create those kind of worlds. In the science fiction side of things, like David Weber's Honor Harrington series, I thought that was really well done because now sometimes he goes along, he's too long-winded, but that's okay. I mean, that's David Weber. And so there's just certain authors that create a world that is authentic enough that feels right. So that's why I'm like, like when I'm researching like what's happening, like what do they eat right in that time, right?
Mhm.
Could there be eggs? Could there be chickens? Well, it turns out in the 5th century, chickens could have made it to Ireland because they were mostly all over the European continent. Now, maybe it doesn't spread to my character as she grew up, but maybe as she goes to one of the larger ring forts, what they call dunes, yeah, maybe she could have eggs. So it's even something as simple as how realistic can you make that?
Mhm.
And how did they get them? And you're like, okay, so the chief of that dune is cousin to the king, and the king gets what he wants. So yeah, I could see it happening. So you kind of gotta like look at even something as simple as what you're eating or how they're eating, and how realistic can that be?
And it's just so what an awesome answer. It's just so funny that you mentioned Anne McCaffrey because I was seriously talking this morning to one of my followers about the white dragon and how much we love the white dragon. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just funny
That
that
was
you mentioned
awesome.
that.
That was awesome.
So probably the easy question: what do you love about writing?
These characters, I love my characters, and there's times I'll be writing a scene and something comes out of my character's mouth that I had no idea was going to happen. Honestly, and I just did that scene where the song of the 4th book will be placed, and it was pretty awesome. I just like it when my characters talk to me and go, "Yeah, no, that's not what I'm going to say."
That's amazing. It's like they take over the story a little bit.
Pretty much,
So,
you take over your head.
what do you dread about?
I did something a little weird. Let me say that I did.
Mhm.
I play around with AI not to write, but just to see what I can do with marketing. You can create a voice. So I created a voice for my lead character Brianna and her mate Owen, and we have a conversation. And I haven't released that, and it was pretty dark conversation. I got to lighten that up. It was kind of like what happens after Immortals, anyways.
Well,
Kind of
that's
weird.
fascinating.
Yeah. I sometimes think I'm not in my right mind.
I think that's kind of all writers/authors.
Yeah, it
But
drives my wife nuts. Anyways,
you mentioned marketing, which I think both JT and I would agree that we hate that part of the whole writing process. What do you dread about writing?
the marketing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it just takes me away from writing.
Hmm.
But then again, if I don't do the marketing, then nobody reads it, and you're kind of like. And as an indie author, you got to get yourself out there, and probably the hardest thing is to figure out, what marketing actually works and what doesn't. Yes, heavy sigh. I don't know how else to put it, but there's for those aspiring authors, there's a ton of scammers out there in the indie author world. So just be careful and get references and yeah, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely do your research. It's so important.
Yeah, this is really tough.
So is there a single life experience that affects your writing for good or bad?
I don't know. Do you call dreams life experiences? Because I have these really weird dreams. I had one the other day, well, 3 months ago, but it turned out it made it into Warriors of Destiny. I had a dream about demons, and I was like, and they were Fomorian demons, and I was like, what am I going to do with this? And then, I got it. I had an idea. And so one of the things that I've had the question, you're kind of like anti-Christianity. Now I use the word one God mostly and throughout the series, not Christianity, because it really, whatever. And Brianna is really anti one God, my lead character. And it's like, I'm trying to like fit my head in a time when they believed in the Tuatha gods, the Gaels, and the Celts believed in their gods. And there were pantheons of gods everywhere. And, you know, the one God concept of monotheism was pretty new. So yeah, I can see how she wouldn't be all excited about these one gods who are going to basically change her land and kill her gods. So I have to put my head in her head, right? And how would I write it? And so, yeah, it's that's the challenge of, are you writing in the time? If you're writing in the time, you could be anti something it's anti-British because all the British stuff that happened in Ireland. It's like, yeah, they're going to not be happy about what's happened to their people. Anyway, so back to the dream. It turns out that this is not a big reveal, not a big tell, but Brianna saves some monks who are living on the far side of the island from Fomorian demons, and the leader, St. Patrick, who would become St. Patrick, declares St. Bridget and St. Brianna as having worked miracles. She's not happy about that. Now, Bridget thinks it's hilarious. It's like, because you get your power, gods get their powers from those who worship them. Hey, you got some worshipers now. This is just, she's hilarious. She's a lyric. Anyways.
That's awesome.
Okay, so there you go. Hopefully that didn't throw you too far off track.
No. Actually, it's funny how similar some of the things you've been saying are, because the book I released last year has a character named Bridget, and she's actually named after Saint Bridget. And it's kind of like you mentioned the pantheon of gods and things, but it's like there was this it seems like it's in the atmosphere or something where people start believing similar things. And I found that when we talk to writers, it's funny how a lot of us are drawn to similar ideas and similar people and, historical events or characters or things. So it's almost like there's something in the air or the water or something. And I've also had dreams that they've kind of influenced my writing a little bit because they could be so vivid. And so that really it speaks to me.
I'm glad.
But it sounds like you really enjoy writing and the writing life. Would you recommend it to a loved one, and why or why not?
I'll start with the why not. I mean, why can be as easy as just that if you're going to be creative. I have a fine arts minor, and I found out that my hands weren't really good at the fine part of fine arts. Okay, so that's why I turned to writing, and I said, yeah, I actually can do this. Which was pretty arrogant of me at the time when I was 20 and I was writing really bad stuff. But you learn over time. Probably the one thing that's hardest being an author with a family is it takes a lot of time. And I actually get yelled at by my wife from time to time. Hey, the kids are over. Get out of your book. Get over here. So grandkids, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to be present with younger children, and so that's probably the biggest time is a life-work balance, which happens like in IT too. I mean, there's lots of times in IT that I was traveling and working, ungodly hours that I wasn't around. It's not a whole lot different than, think about it. You're going to do it. It's going to be a full-time job, but you got to take time out and not let it be all-consuming.
No, that's a good point.
It's an excellent point. Excellent point. And it's not a job that you can just set down, you can turn off the computer and just walk away from it, because it's always germinating in your brain, yes. Even when you admit this, but even when playing with kids and grandkids, it's there. It's still there.
Yeah, it is. It's always there. And then you're always like going, now what's this kid's personality like, and how can I fit it in as a character? And
Right?
Exactly.
like my third granddaughter is a bit more introspective, and I would call it more ethereal. So she's a seeress, and where my second granddaughter is pretty fiery. So I made her a fire druid warrior. My eldest granddaughter is a mix of Vietnamese and French Canadian. So I made her character, her grandfather and father come from the Far East all the way to Spain. So she wields katanas. So it's you just gotta kind of like look at how they are and what they can be, and that's kind of fun doing it. I enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. Now, but they can't read it until they're 16. So because it's an upper YA. So I do get that question. It's like, what's the target audience? And it's not a YA audience at all. But you can go upper YA, which is like 16 and up. 16 to 20 is fine, I think. There you go. I'll turn it back over to you. There's got to be another question.
No, that's fascinating. And nothing wrong with being proud of your kids, but being proud of your descendants. Nothing wrong with that ever. So what is something unexpected in your past that we won't see in your bio?
It's slightly there. I grew up in the late 60s, early 70s, and I was a long-haired, big bearded hippie dude. You don't see that in my bio. My hair was longer than my wife's, and I got it cut for our wedding. It used to be like down almost to my tailbone, and I wore this big fat ponytail. Anyways, there you go.
Oh, wow. That's seeing you now. That does present a very different picture.
Is there photographic evidence that you've shared with your grandkids?
Yeah, our wedding picture, they've seen it. Our wedding picture is me.
I can imagine. That's
hair.
Grandpa?
Grandpa?
Okay, so we're winding up here, but before we go away, before we end it, James, let's give you this opportunity to tell us, where can we find you on the World Wide Web? Where can we find your books, your whole public face?
Okay. So I was fortunate enough to find the domain Destiny Cycle and have it be available as a .com. So destinycycle.com, pretty easy, and it's James at destinycycle.com. I got the email as well. And when you're an indie author, you've got to make kind of this choice. If you want to go with Amazon and Amazon Unlimited, and they want to lock you in, you really can't go anywhere else. Or you can say, damn the torpedoes. And so I can publish on Amazon, but I'm not controlled by them. All right. So I'm also published on Google, Apple, Barnes & Noble, Kubo, Draft to Digital. So you can basically find my books anywhere. And I also this is important, if you want to have your books available, they won't be in store, but they can be orderable. So you got to go, unfortunately, not a great company to work with is Ingram Spark. And so Ingram Spark is what feeds the libraries and feeds the bookstores. And so like there's this little bookstore on Mercer Island near where I live, which is between Seattle and the east side of Bellevue. I live in the Seattle area. And so we did a book signing there, and you have to basically bring your books, and they do it on consignment. But at least you're getting them books that are in their catalog, and their catalog is the Ingram Spark catalog.
Okay, excellent.
And then audiobooks, the way Authors Republic works is it's distributed everywhere. So my audiobook shows up on Barnes & Noble because Author Republic makes that happen. It shows up on Spotify, it shows up on Apple, it shows up on Google, it shows up everywhere. So it's on Audible, it's on, when my page comes up, my audiobook is there, even though it's published through Authors Republic. It ends up with, an ISBN and under my name, and it shows in my paperback and my hardback and my ebook and my audiobook. They all show up. So that's where you can find me.
No, that's impressive.
And I'm on social media everywhere. TikTok is James.Raquepau, and Instagram is James Raquepau. It's like you can't get them all, make them 100% the same. But Facebook is author James Raquepau. I have my own Facebook page. And I go through spurts of posting, and then now, like I say, I was just deep into redoing all of the titles and subtitles, and the main part of the title is still there, but I've been researching what are some best practices from a marketing perspective with your title. Well, put some things in your title other than your title that are it's an epic fantasy about whatever, war and
Yeah,
fate, and so you can kind of see how that evolves. But again, like I said, once your print book is out and that's the title, and then you just have to like fix your description below it, so that all the right keywords and the searches and all the other stuff comes up right in the right way. Okay, that's where you can
excellent. So thank you, and thank you for that, and thank you for sitting down with us. This has been incredibly fascinating. Not only to find out the history and influences of your books, which is really, really, well, I guess the word is complex and fascinating, but also the hard work that you've done on our most favorite subject, marketing and media outreach. So
Yes.
between all that, I just want to again tell our listeners, if you want the complete package, destinycycle.com is probably going to be a good, if not excellent resource. So thank you, James.
Yes, thank
Absolutely.
you.
It's been a pleasure. You guys are great.
So we've had James Raquepau on to talk about his Destiny Cycle series. And you can find these and other interesting authors, and boy, James is fascinating. You can find more of this by going to our website at carsonhume.com. And you can check out this podcast because throughout the first part of 2026, every 2 weeks, we're going to be featuring somebody new. And we're so looking forward to it. So until then, thank you again, James.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a great holiday weekend. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you too. Take care. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.